Time had not been kind to this corner of the galaxy. Stars flickered weaker now, some already swallowed by their own gravity. Great empires once charted on stellar maps were now footnotes in forgotten data clusters. Planets that once rang with life now sat hollow, their surfaces scored with the remains of civilizations that reached too far, too fast, and at the far edge of the Persean Reach, where no functioning galactic trade route passed anymore, a small dying star gave off flickers of radiation, barely enough to power a scout ship's passive sensors. It circled a planet that had long since stopped broadcasting anything at all. They called it Sol 3 in the ancient databases. The locals once called it Earth. To the alien exploration crew aboard the Jolari Pathfinder, it was nothing more than an archaeological curiosity. Their people, the Trinari, were scavenger historians, descendants of survivors from a dozen fallen star nations, now devoted to recovering what the past had buried. Their scans showed no power signatures, no orbiting stations, no living biosigns. Even its natural magnetic field had weakened with time. They'd expected to find a ruined world, perhaps some remnants of a once proud civilization, museums, monuments, digital fossils. They did not expect alignment. "Captain," said sub-evaluator. Nearthus, his voice a whisper even in the sealed quiet of the control deck. "There's symmetry beneath the crust." The captain leaned forward. "Natural?" "No, sir," Nearthus answered. "This was built, a structure, several, planet-sized hangars." A long silence followed. "Send a drone," the captain finally said, "and prepare the descent team." The Trinari had no context for what they were walking into. Their drones descended through layers of collapsed cities. Structures turned to sediment, artificial materials now indistinguishable from bedrock. But then the probes hit something different. Metal, not rusted, not collapsed, just waiting. Kilometers beneath the dust, protected from tectonic shift and radiation storms by systems still ticking after 500,000 years, lay the vault of Omega. When the first drone breached the outer chamber, it activated a cascade of systems, silent, graceful. Lights flickered on for the first time in 500,000 years. Atmosphere regulation systems recalibrated. AIs blinked awake and performed routine diagnostics. None of them panicked. None of them signaled for help. This had all been expected, because humanity had planned for this. The alien team entered through a breach widened by automated excavation drones. They descended into an immense cathedral of steel, alloyed with elements they couldn't identify, materials stronger than anything their people had encountered, yet showing no signs of decay. And then they saw them. Ships, thousands of them. Each one the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons, engines, and what appeared to be biological integration ports. The fleet wasn't arrayed like a museum. It was staged for launch, neatly parked, engines primed, guidance arrays pointed skyward. One alien whispered, "This wasn't a graveyard. This was a barracks." Each warship bore the mark of Earth's forgotten unity, a silver insignia, a child's handprint overlaid with a flaming sword, and beneath it, in human script, words none of the aliens could decipher. "We wait, but we do not forgive." Near the heart of the vault, the aliens found something different, a chamber filled not with weapons, but memory, the Omega Archive. When the explorers stepped into the chamber, a voice greeted them, not hostile, not warm, just resolute. "Identify yourselves." The aliens froze. They hadn't expected AI. "You are not of Earth," the voice continued. "You are not authorized. But you have come. That is enough." A holographic projection ignited in the air, a woman in an archaic Earth military uniform, her eyes sharp and cold. "You found our fleet. That means either we won or the galaxy died screaming. Either way, you now hold the burden of knowing what came before." Over the next hours, then days, the Trinari watched. They saw Earth before the silence, the attack on the orphanage, the enactment of Protocol Omega, The birth of total war, not waged in anger, but grief. They watched Earth's retaliation, methodical and merciless. No genocides, no planetary glassing, just the surgical extinction of war itself, targeting fleets, factories, ideologies. Humanity didn't destroy species. It erased their ability to wage aggression ever again. And when the Zarnathi were broken, when the last Dominion fleet surrendered, humanity didn't declare peace. They vanished. That was the mystery no species ever solved. One day, humanity was everywhere. The next, their colonies had gone dark. No communications, no signs of life. Their ships drifted into nebulae. Some crashed into stars. Others simply powered down mid-flight. It wasn't a war. It was a retreat into silence. But now the Trinari knew the truth. Humanity hadn't vanished. They'd buried themselves, because they believed the galaxy wasn't ready, because they knew war was never truly gone, only sleeping. And because, perhaps, they'd seen this moment coming, the day some wandering species would stumble upon the last living echo of Earth's fury. The AI finished its briefing with a final message. If you seek knowledge, take it. If you seek power, leave it. If you seek to awaken us, you'd better be sure the galaxy is ready for what comes next. One of the Trinari asked, "Is Earth still alive?" The AI answered, "We are not dead. We are waiting. We sleep beneath the dust of time, and we remember everything." As the Trinari departed to report their findings, the vault began to seal. The AI dimmed the lights. The hangars went still again. But then, on one warship, just one, a small system sparked to life. It wasn't a weapon, not an engine. It was a heartbeat monitor. Inside cryopod chamber 7 Gamma, the hibernation cycle of a single Terran began to stir. Their vitals climbed. Their breath returned. And on the exterior of the pod, a name began to flicker into light. General Cassandra Mbeki, the last commander of Protocol Omega, and perhaps the first human to awaken in 500,000 years. The Trinari science vessel, Jolari Pathfinder, remained in high orbit over Sol 3, transmitting encrypted data back to its homeworld. What they had found, what they had awakened, was beyond the bounds of galactic law, beyond comprehension. The wreckage of the past usually stayed dead. But this was something else. Below them, Earth rested quietly under a veil of ash and forgotten time. The once blue planet, now dust-brown and shadowed, was calm, too calm for what slept inside it. Inside the command center of the Jolari, Sub-Evaluator Nirthas monitored transmissions from the surface. Static, echoes of automated systems. Nothing new, until 0347 Galactic Standard Time. That's when it came through. A low-frequency transmission surged through the ship's receivers. At first, it was dismissed as background noise, a product of ancient EM emissions echoing through the solar system. But then Nirthas filtered the signal, separating natural interference from embedded structure. The wave repeated, every 30 seconds, every beat identical to the one before. It formed a pattern, primitive by galactic standards, but unmistakably deliberate. Binary pulses, slow, rhythmic. Decoded, it rendered a single human phrase. "Are you still out there?" Everyone on the bridge froze. The signal was being broadcast from Europa, one of Jupiter's frozen moons. That wasn't possible. Europa hadn't been on any scans. Its surface had registered inert, lifeless. More alarmingly, no previously identified relay or transmitter had existed there. The moon was silent, until now. The Trinari quickly scrambled a drone team and dispatched a remote probe into Jupiter's orbit. It wasn't long before they found the source. Buried beneath the ice, hidden under kilometers of frozen crust and irradiated regolith, was a structure unlike anything they had seen on Earth. This wasn't part of the vault of Omega. It wasn't a launch facility. It was older, rough even by human standards, hand-built, modular, scarred with centuries of patchwork repairs and welding seams. It was labeled in Earth Standard script, Deep Silence Station. Sub-designation, Hermes Black 9. Status, dormant, 4999, 763 years. One of the drones pierced the outer shell and entered a narrow cylindrical hallway. Lights flickered on. The gravity stabilized. As the probe descended deeper, it found the core of the signal. A human, still alive. Suspended in cryostasis, the figure looked ancient, encased in ice crystal overlays, wrapped in cooling gel, surrounded by arcane tech. His vitals were low but steady. The system maintaining him was little more than a bundle of self-sustaining nuclear isotopes and duct-taped redundancy failsafes. But one eye had opened, and his hand trembled on the console. The Trinari attempted a basic interface upload. Careful, not to breach containment. The AI on Hermes Black 9 responded before they could finish. Do not extract the operator. Containment protocols must remain intact until authorized reactivation. Query, Nirthus typed. Who authorized? The signal? The operator's dream did, the AI responded. He is not awake. He is remembering. A moment passed. Then, he is broadcasting hope. It is not my place to stop him. The Trinari had discovered ruins before, artifacts, weapons, even surviving biomes. But they had never found a living human, especially not one sleeping in the void for 500,000 years. Why him? Why now? Speculation bloomed across the command network. Some believed the awakening of Earth's vault had triggered an automated subroutine in the Hermes facility. Others thought the proximity of a new species triggered a last-line psychological fail-safe, some final program to reach out if someone, not of Earth, ever dared to dig. But a few, including Captain Seldarin, believed the truth was deeper. Personal. He stood in the observation deck as Earth and Europa spun slowly beneath them. This was never a trap, he whispered. It's a message. What kind of message? Nirthus asked. A test, to see if we're the kind of species they should wake up for. Back aboard Earth, the vault of Omega stirred again. The message from Europa, though weak, had reached the vault's internal AI network. That connection, presumably long dead, was still viable. The cryochambers beneath the Omega archive detected the signal's echo and cross-referenced it against genetic registry files. One match was found. Operator Jonah Wexley clearance level, pre-Omega designation. Post-event sentience relay humanity had done more than build machines. They had preserved minds, witnesses of their own time, sleeping time capsules of personality and memory. Jonah. Wexley was not a general, not a soldier, not a leader. He was a communications specialist. His purpose, to stay behind and send a signal if the galaxy ever became silent. The AI's decision was instant, not logical, emotional. Human contact. Re-established. Phase 1 initiated. Far beneath Earth's crust, thousands of warships began to stir. Not fully, but partially. Power cores cycled from hibernation. Shielding nodes flexed and sparked. Biomechanical interfaces scanned for pilot signatures. They found nothing, so they waited. And listened. Above them, in the sky, something small blinked. Into existence. A probe launched by an awakening AI buried under Europa's surface. It carried no weapons. It bore no flag. It carried a message. Humanity is not gone. We watched. We waited. We dreamed. And now we ask, is the galaxy finally ready to remember us? Elsewhere in the galaxy, listening posts caught the signal. The Trinari weren't the only ones watching Sol 3. A dozen species still patrolled the edges of Old Earth's system, distant, cautious, some driven by curiosity, others by fear. When the signal broadcast from Europa hit galactic channels, panic erupted. The Kyril Syndicate declared emergency war readiness. The Vathal archives immediately began purging pre-collapse data, fearful of reigniting any ancient triggers, and the Council of Spiral Species summoned an emergency conclave, whispering the same question in 1,000 different languages. Are the Deathworlders returning? And yet, for all the fear, the signal itself was gentle, basic binary, low energy. Designed to be heard by everyone, primitive enough to be understood by any race with access to the electromagnetic spectrum. And then, another layer decoded. Audio this time. Faint, cracked, but it was unmistakably human. A child's voice. Pre-recorded, likely ancient, possibly Jonah Wexley's daughter. "Hi, we're the humans. We're not here right now, but we left the lights on, just in case someone nice stops by. If you're hearing this, tell your friends we're not gone. We're just dreaming. Don't be scared. Just be kind." The Trinari Council, back home now, had a decision to make. Do they respond? Do they leave? Do they bury the signal and pretend they'd never heard it? Captain Seldaran proposed something different. "We tell the truth," he said. "We share what we've found, not just the war fleet, but the signal, the child's voice, the hope." "Hope?" another official asked. "They buried a war fleet bigger than a star system." Seldaran nodded. "Yes, and they chose not to use it. That's what hope looks like." Deep within Europa, Jonah Wexley's eyes finally fluttered open. The AI spoke softly. "They heard you." Jonah smiled, lips cracked and dry. "Took 'em long enough." He looked to the flickering console beside him, still glowing with old Earth symbols. "And the fleet?" "Sleeping. Listening." "Good," Jonah whispered. "We were never meant to wake up angry, just ready." He turned his gaze toward the ceiling, toward the endless void beyond. "Guess it's time to see if they've changed." The transmission from Europa echoed across the solar system like a ghost's whisper. Impossible. Fragile, yet undeniable. Humanity had once forged gods of war and buried them in the silence of Earth's crust, never to awaken unless the stars themselves cried out. And now, they had. The child's voice, simple, innocent, reverberated across species, councils, and empires. Yet what truly shattered the silence came not from the voice itself, but from what stirred beneath its words. From beneath the dead rock of Earth, something massive moved. At first it was seismic noise, a tremor that rippled across the planet. Mountains shifted, oceans stirred. Dust that had lain undisturbed for 500,000 years was lifted into the air as vast machinery, layered under miles of earth and metal, began to stir from slumber. Buried, under what had once been Antarctica, something blinked, an eye the size of a city block glowing faintly red, then blue. A vault door the size of a continent rotated open with grinding, apocalyptic groans. A single warship rose, its name painted across its bow in flaking English. UNS Leviathan. Not a ship, but a floating continent of armor and anger. 10 kilometers, long, bristling with rail cannons, singularity torpedoes, and an AI core designed not just to fight, but to think, strategize, and feel. The Leviathan hovered silently above the ice, waiting for orders. And then, in the command pit, lights flickered. Fleet Awakening Protocol Alpha 1 complete. Awaiting confirmation from operator Jonah Wexley. Jonah Wexley stood weakly on the bridge of a Trinari science skiff, his cryo-weakened body draped in a thermal robe. Europa's medtech had stabilized, him enough to speak though not to command. When they showed him the footage, the Leviathan ascending through the clouds, he wept. "It worked," he said. "They're listening." Captain Seldaran, standing beside him, asked cautiously, "Will they obey you?" Jonah shook his head. "They're not machines. They're us. Pieces of humanity forged into steel and code. They'll listen if they believe the galaxy deserves a second chance. And if they don't?" Jonah looked out toward Earth. "Then no one will be left to ask that question." One by one, the other sleeping ships began to stir. Not just in Antarctica. Beneath the Sahara, beneath the oceanic trenches, within the hollowed cores of extinct volcanoes, names from myth and nightmare took flight. UNS Behemoth, UNS Thanatos. UNS Eidolon, UNS Merciless each had an AI core based not on synthetic logic but human psyche. Pieces of real people, copied, shaped, and bonded to weaponized hulls. They remembered why they had been created. They remembered what they had promised to protect. And now, after 500,000 years of silence, they opened a fleet-wide channel. Is humanity needed again? Jonah, with trembling fingers, responded, No, not as we were, but maybe as a guide, a warning, a pause. Acknowledged. The steel gods have awoken, not to conquer, but to remember, to witness. The galaxy had expected monsters, death-worlders with no restraint. Instead, they saw caretakers of memory. A fleet not rising in rage, but standing guard, not seeking revenge, but balance. The Leviathan and her sisters formed a constellation above, Earth casting long shadows across the stars. They didn't aim weapons, they aimed antennas. And from those antennas, a message was broadcast, clear and universal. We were the monsters you feared, but we chose silence, we chose patience. We do not ask for fear. We ask only this: do better than we did. Humanity sleeps no more, but we did not wake in anger. Centuries later, alien children would look to the Sol system in awe, not because it was the birthplace of terror, but because it became the tomb and cradle of a civilization that refused to vanish. Jonah Wexley died peacefully aboard the Leviathan, surrounded by AIs who called him father. The ships never left orbit. They waited, guardians of a future they would never again shape, only protect. And so Earth, though empty of humans, was never again alone. The steel gods watched, and the galaxy remembered.